Keys to sickbay. The doctor should look at it as soon as possible.
It is the way in which we propagate our species. Please demonstrate how this is accomplished. So, what's next? I don't know.
Hi, and welcome to Casual Trek, a Star Trek recap and ranking podcast brought to you by Nerd and Ty and the Super Stalag of Space. I'm Charlie Etheridge Nunn, a writer and a Harry 20 on the hard rock fan.
And I'm Miles Reed-Lobato, a science fiction writer and a fan of Dan Dare, Pilot of the Future.
Normally, we talk about 3 episodes of Star Trek based around a theme, but this time, I'm ill. We're unprepared for a proper episode currently, and I've finally got a copy of Star Trek Godshock by IDW, so Miles and I can talk about this like I think we've been aiming to since the start of the show, probably.
Yeah, and this is also like the first time we've talked about a Star Trek related comic since I think our first year when we did the Chris Claremont Debt of Honor original graphic novel.
Oh yeah, and there'll be a sequel to that coming soon.
Oh yeah, and obviously this is prep for my nightmare, which is Doctor Who, Star Trek The Next Generation, Assimilation Squared.
Yeah, which I now have all of.
Oh my god.
Yeah, now all I need to do is bring myself to read it all.
Like, you know, I generally... It's not good. Like, honestly, you know, normally, given Doctor Who's varied quality over 60 years, like, I can generally go, yeah, like, I can see the merits of, say, something as badass, The Underwater Menace, or an episode like, or that one episode of the Peter Capaldi where all the trees grow.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, or that one episode where it turns out the moon is actually an egg of a space dragon. With the moment the moment it hatches, it immediately gives birth to the moon, a new moon. Like, I can excuse a lot of these kind of not great episodes, but Assimilation Squared is boring. I don't want to talk about it.
It's alright, we'll find some ways to make it fun.
Okay.
Even if it's our own pitch meetings, like with the Section 31.
Because otherwise I will find the first few chapters of my attempt at a Doctor Who Star Trek crossover fanfic.
Wow, well, there we go. There's a promise.
There's a threat.
There's both. So, before we go on, Miles, what non-Star Trek thing have you been enjoying since we last spoke?
Well, we at my flat, we've been working on rewiring our home media console setup because my lovely wife and editor Rihanna owns literally nearly all the consoles. From the latest being the PlayStation 5, all the way down to an Atari, an Odyssey 2.
Wow.
And yeah, we got a ton. We got a Saturn, we got a Dreamcast. We have a Sega CD, but that one I don't think actually works. And amongst these, because one of our cats decided to take a piss on one of our power strips. And we had to do some very quick rejuggling of our plug-in setup. One of the devices we have is a multi-region DVD player, so I can watch because I'm not getting rid of my Doctor Who DVDs I've already purchased.
God, until you mentioned it, I forgot regions were a thing.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so we got it finally hooked up and working. So I am currently watching the 1958 BBC 6-part serial Quatermass and the Pit, written by Nigel Neal, one of the great British telly writers and notorious hater of Doctor Who.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can kind of point to all the kind of the Earthbound era Doctor Who stuff and go, yeah, you're just ripping off Quatermass.
Wow. I do wonder how much media has been made because of people's spite writing in response to Doctor Who.
There's at least one 80s kind of play for today that I know of. But yeah, there are 4 Quatermass serials. The 4th one is made in the 70s and might be the one thing more depressing than Tortured Children of Earth.
Wow.
And the main character is Professor Bernard Quatermass, who is the head of the British space program. Yes, this is how old these serials are. That the idea that Britain could have a working space program, and he is the head of the British Experimental Rocket Group. And the first serial, the Quatermass Experiment, of which only 2 episodes exist, the rest were junked, involves the first manned space mission of 3 people coming back with only one person. Said one person was kind of possessed by an alien creature like the Thing and absorbed the other 2 crew members and is mutating into an alien creature which will, destroy the world.
Of course.
The second serial, Quatermass 2, involves body snatchers who are operating out of a mysterious factory to grow more creatures to possess the planet. And Quatermass and the Pit, a series of pre-man skeletons are found while digging up a street in London, leading to the uncovery of a strange, what looks like a missile, but is actually revealed to be a Martian spacecraft from millions of years ago, and it kind of leads into the into ideas that like ghosts and actually the spirits and consciousness of ancient aliens who have been manipulating us. That all kind of stuff. And yeah, and this is a 6-part serial. All 3 serials were turned into films of varying quality by Hammer. And the first 2 films notoriously have an American actor playing Quatermass, who is treating the role of learned scientist with the same gravitas of like a police heavy in a 1950s American like cop movie.
Brilliant.
And I'll be honest, it's kind of amazing. So if I ever play like a role-playing game where I get to play a scientist, I'm basically going to play him as like Grant Mitchell, as like this tough hard man who's a qualified scientist.
Of course. Well, I mean, what stops a scientist from sounding like Grant Mitchell?
I don't know, actually. It'll be fun to see. But yeah, it's I watch it every couple of years. It's fun. It's really good. It's really entertaining science fiction and horror, and it looks good for like the late 50s. And for a serial which was broadcast and performed live, as a lot of TV was back then.
Yeah, it's something I know is like a foundational British television sci-fi kind of thing, and have never got round to seeing. And I'm not even sure what it's on currently.
Maybe an iPlayer. Usually the free Hammer films.
Yeah,
are probably on like some streaming service. I would say the film of Quatermass in the Pit is a good scaling down of a 6-part serial into like a tight 90 minutes.
Yeah.
And it doesn't lose much, but it loses a lot of the pacing and a lot of the kind of the flavor.
Okay.
And so, Charlie, what about you? What non-Star Trek thing have you been enjoying this week?
Well, so I'm a Legion of Superheroes fan for my sins. It's one of those things where, as I've been shedding some of my comic collection and narrowing things down and trying to be a bit more strict with what I'm getting in general, I mostly buy X-Men comics, but my favourite comic in DC has always been the Legion of Superheroes. So after picking up a couple of old issues of action and adventure comics recently, and just getting in the mindset of like, yeah, I miss some of the bonkersness of early Legion. I kind of blame reading 2010's X-Men on that, but yeah, I discovered there's a Legion of Superheroes recap podcast. So the same way that both you and I listened to Jem Miles explain the X-Men, the Major Spoilers site has the Legion Clubhouse, which is going a couple of issues at a time through the Legion of Superheroes, but even getting like a biographer of Otto Binder, and the current episode, which I think's only half a dozen in, as well as covering the introduction of Ultra Boy. It's also got an interview with Mark Waid, who is a guy who got to reboot the Legion twice, edited the Legion at one point, and is a big Legion fanboy. So it's always fun listening to someone with as ludicrous a level of knowledge as Mark Waid talking on a thing. So yeah, and I've seen it's kept going because where I'm at is early on in it and 2017, and they're not yet at the 5 years later time jump Legion era, but I'm looking forward to seeing how it goes because I read the Levitz Giffen era of Legion before that once, and it kind of just, I don't know, it didn't stick with me as much as the 5 years later material, the goofy Silver Age, and yeah, the Wade reboots. So yeah, it's nice discovering something like that.
The only kind of bits of the Legion of Superheroes I've read before recently were the Abner and Lanning run when because I managed to pick up like the trades really cheap on Comixology. So that's like the Legion of the Damned and like the Legion Lost stuff.
Yes. Oh,
and
I love that.
After reading a very good article on Comics XF, I picked up the first 3 issues of the 5 years later reboot on Comixology / Amazon / Jeff Bezos Hell Site number 315, and I never thought a comic from like the 1980s would just kind of resonate for me right now in the hellscape of 2025.
Oh god, yeah, all the shit that's going on with EarthGov at that point. Yeah, it's an interesting series. It starts off interestingly. It gets interrupted quickly by a kind of weird retcon kind of thing going on, and then carries on quite well for a bit before 0 Hour shuts everything down. But yeah, it's something where you can see format wise, it's doing a lot to be similar to Watchmen with the 9-panel grids, with with data pages, and like Giffen style. For someone that often did comedy work, it's funny sometimes, especially when Tenzil Kem's around, but it can go to some rough places. So yeah, it's a good fun era. So yes, but we're not here to talk about Legion of Superheroes yet, because there is also a Star Trek Legion comic, which we'll get to. Yeah,
we had to be quick because I think a lot of the Star Trek crossovers are very rapidly getting expensively out of print.
Yeah, like which is annoying.
Like the Star Trek Planet of the Apes crossover, which is a thing.
Ah, well. Yes, so today we're here to talk about Star Trek Godshock by IDW. It was released between the 26th of October 2022 for 12th of April 2023. Written by Colin Kelly and Jackson Lanzig. Art by Ramon Rosanas, Oleg Chudakov, Joe Eismer, and Eric Tamayo. Coloured by Lee Lothridge. Lettered by Clayton Cowles. Edited by Heather Antos. And there was a very brief prelude as well from Star Trek issue 400, which came out on the 7th of September 2022. Ooh, you've got a nice cover there.
Yeah, I've been collecting the series since it came out.
Yes. Yeah, I remember you mentioning this when it first happened. Oh yeah. Yes, the nice David Arhart cover you've got there of issue 1, because I have the hardback, which, you know, it's alright. I'm generally not a fan of the thin hardbacks for things, because, I don't know, it feels like you get a few and it's going to take up a lot of space.
Yeah.
For shorter runs like these first 6 issues, I tend to prefer a soft cover, just because portability.
Yeah.
You know, I've got the first omnibus of Uncanny X-Men, and it's like, I'm not reading from that. It's a lovely object, but it is way too big compared to, like, say, the Walking Dead volumes, which feel like you can roll them up and stick them in your pocket.
Pretty much, it's like I want to reread Charlie's War, the battle action war strip, but it's in big chunky paperbacks. I mean, it's like I can't stick this in my bag. And I think this is where manga definitely has been good in cornering the market by replicating the kind of the mass market paperback size of the Tankobon, which is what they call the collections in Japan.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I wasn't aware that there was a specific name for that size of volume.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it means, but that's the Japanese word for like a collection of manga, because manga is all like British comics. Manga is in Japan is all serialized in magazines the size of phone books.
Yes. So, let's see. Just to go through the synopsis of this, because we won't do a massive recap of it, but the basic synopsis from Solicitor. Oh,
quick question.
Yo.
Since I am actually this is one of the few comics I'm up to date on.
Oh.
Are we keeping this spoiler? Are we keeping this spoiler free? Or
probably.
Okay, I can. Work
if you want to be vague, then you know that's fine. But yeah, I will be picking up Volume 2 at some point. So the synopsis is: Deep Space Nine Captain Benjamin Sisko returns in a new ongoing series featuring fan-favorite characters from across the Star Trek universe, sure to thrill new readers and long-time Trekkies alike. Stardate 2378. That's not how you do Stardates, is it? Anyway, Stardate 2378, a bold new era of Star Trek begins. 3 years ago, Benjamin Sisko made a courageous sacrifice that left him trapped in a dimension of mysterious prophets. Now he's returned to his home universe with powerful godlike abilities. But his omnipotence is failing when he needs it most. Someone's killing the gods, and Sisko and the motley crew of the USS Theseus will have to travel to the deepest parts of space to stop them. Star Trek Year 5 lead writers Jackson Lanzig and Colin Kelly, and artist Ramon Rosas, Oleg Chudakov, Joe Eismer, and Eric Tamayo present a new ship, a new mission, and a lot of old friends. Sisko's joined by Commanders Data and Worf, and Dr. Beverly Crusher of Star Trek Next Generation, Lieutenant Tom Paris of Star Trek Voyager, new characters Ensigns Lily Sato and Talia, Captain Montgomery Scott of Star Trek The Original Series, and Ben's son, Jake, is also there. But there are new faces as well, to surprise established fans while showing new readers the ropes. So, yeah, I mean, it's not the best blurb, having read it now. it kind of gets some of it.
I do like the and Jake Sisko is also there, which
I might have added that last bit.
okay, because I feel that's I feel like I feel that's just kind of what happened to Jake Sisko in Deep Space Nine, which is, and he's also there as well.
I mean, that is the case for him for most. I'd say like 4 of the 6 issues here.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's quite a stacked cast. You know, normally I'd expect this kind of thing of going, here's a comic. It's set after the TV series, and we've got some name level people, generally like 1 or 2, and then some new folks, because it'd be weird getting them together. But this feels almost like the Brian Bendis New Avengers attitude of, why the fuck haven't the Avengers had like Spider-Man, Wolverine, all your big hitters from all over the place on one team? Like, yeah, get a few TNGs, get a Voyager. Why not?
I definitely I think I remember from like an early interview that they were kind of going for like, you know, a kind of a JL Justice League of America. Let's get a bunch of big names and have them deal with big shit.
Yes, yeah. The big shit in this case being something which feels interestingly linked to some of the ideas that Roddenberry had. Not necessarily for the ideas that Roddenberry had, but yeah, it's interesting seeing it being both big, but not feeling like, oh, it's another galaxy-ending threat. It's yet another, you know, like every season in Discovery or anything like that. We have a big threat. We have some weird shit, and at various times, people Starfleet the hell out of it, which is quite nice. You know, like the basic gist as like, at the very start, we get a little prelude which has Gary Mitchell, which I opened and sighed because I'd seen the Unification short before this. And was like, oh no. But you know, we get a nice little monologue from him, and the kind of hope of, you know, you've got the Federation, you've got Starfleet, you've got humanity expanding out, and maybe one day reaching the point where they can all ascend to the kind of godlike level that he's at, even if, you know, I assume they wouldn't all need to be killed with a rock first. But
I'm assuming that he got better after being killed with a rock.
I mean, if he's a godlike entity, sure, why not?
Didn't he get better in like one of the Star Trek X-Men crossovers?
Yes, I think so. It's been a while since I've read them, but yeah, I believe you got some Gary Mitchell up in there. Yeah, so you've got that. Only no, he dies, because that's what this is about. It's called Godshock because we get a lot of godlike entities being killed. It's weird. Like in issue 1, you get Sisko coming back and on DS9, so we get a little bit of Kira as well, and Jake's there as well. And yeah, after Sisko arrives and all the Bajorans are like, whoa, this is a religious event. What's it all about? And Sisko's like, I really don't know either.
I do have to say the blurb on Sisko having godlike abilities,
yeah,
feels like it's overselling it.
It really is. It really is.
Like, because like when he comes back, he's basically like Billy Pilgrim in Slaughterhouse 5, in which he's come back from he's come back from being in the wormhole and is thus kind of unstuck in time.
Yeah, he's a bit wibbly with it, and he's got the name Hephaestus, and he's a bit unsure of what it means, even though he occasionally can get the profits on the blower. Unfortunately, that's not always the most helpful thing, especially when they get quite pushy about stuff like, you know, do some killing.
The gods, the wormhole prophets keep just sending him an increasingly angry amount of texts.
Yeah. One of the other lovely things to see early on was data pages, which, as someone who mourns the Krakoan age of X-Men and still hasn't got a Krakoa was for lovers t-shirt yet, it's nice seeing them and seeing them utilized well.
Okay, so for those of us who did not read the Krakoa era,
Mhm.
in our audience, what is a data page? Because also, given that data
Oh god.
appears in the comic, when you say data page, you're like, okay, is this gonna be like Marvel Swimsuit Special 1995, where Data is posing in a tight onesie?
No, they've not yet released a Star Trek comic swimsuit special, but give it time. So a data page, small d, is basically some text, some kind of flavor text that is in universe normally. So for the X comics, it was things like maybe here's a map of Mutant Fuck Island where they're all living now. Here's a breakdown of all of the Omega level mutants. Here's someone's diary, that kind of thing, and often, while it was not the most essential thing to read, it was often interesting and built setting. Sometimes the place that they were contained in actually measured pacing, which was quite nice. Of going, oh yeah, this is going to cause a suitable gap, and we'll see a reaction from afterwards, and then we see what happened to lead to that. So, as a narrative tool, they can be very good. As something that was in a 4 year period of comics, sometimes it wasn't used the best. But in Star Trek, you've got your nice LCARS systems, you've got your captain's logs, you've got all sorts of things like that. So it quite nicely presents academic texts. At one point, the logs of various captains and their encounters with Qs at one point, including one random captain who was tormented by him, which I love because it does just remind you every Starfleet captain goes through this bullshit.
It's I like that one because he has mentioned the seventh and final time he just walked around making fart noises on the bridge.
Yeah, I felt Q was phoning it in there, but
Yeah,
sure.
and then the last one is from Sisko, which just has like 6 lines. Q appeared once. I punched him.
Yes, that was perfect. And it was, it sounds like the perfect Cisco reaction to Q. When we do another Q episode, we'll probably have to see that one because I like the sound of Q attempting to do his bullshit on DS9 and everyone no selling it.
That's like what Q's one cameo in Lower Decks was perfect, and that exact point where he just turns up at the end of the episode, and everyone's just like, "Fuck off, Q!
Yeah,
Go,
God.
go, hassle Picard."
Yeah, so speaking of which, we get a Picard cameo, a nice mirror to the pilot episode of DS9, where Cisco's like, I need some help, I need a ship. And Picard gets a random selection of people.
Oh no, I see. I think that's one of my favorite scenes in the first issue,
Mm,
because like we've had our differences. Why did you come to me? And Cisco was like, well, I was taken by a bunch of weird aliens, and I was changed both mentally and physically forever.
mm.
You know anyone who's been through that?
In a way, Picard being someone that he didn't see eye to eye with kind of helps with this as well. Of like, okay, he's going to send Data along as his second in command. He's going to send Crusher to keep an eye on things and make sure that everything's all right, especially with the whole, you're physically reconstituted now. What's that even mean? You've got Scotty and his ship, the Theseus, named because it's a kit build that he just keeps replacing bits of. And this is where Scotty's been, because sometimes you get things like I vaguely remember the episode of TNG where Scotty is about. So you've got him in the present day of this comic. Why the hell not use him?
Yeah.
And Paris, who I assume Balana's got bored with and gone, go off somewhere, do something else for a bit.
Well, okay. B'Elanna turns up in the spin-off title Star Trek Defiant.
Yes.
Which leads to a rather amusing moment, a kind of a recurring subplot between like the first few issues of Discover of Defiant and the second arc of the Star Trek title, where both parents think the other one has the baby.
I was gonna joke about that. I was gonna make a joke, but no, they actually did it. Brilliant. Okay.
I won't spoil who has the baby because it's very funny about where that baby ends up.
Oh no. I mean, I have suspicions, but yeah. Okay.
Don't worry, it's not Neelix.
Oh, good. Good. Yeah. I
B'Elanna,
mean, would he eat the baby?
I don't think even B'Elanna would shoot the baby off to the Delta Quadrant and just go, "You stay with Uncle Neelix for a while."
So yeah, that's the initial batch of known people. Jake comes along too. Sorry, there is also Jake. He is also there. And then we've got our new people. We've got Lily Sato. Is she related to Hoshi?
She is.
Okay, I thought so. Yeah, and she's an Andorian, despite the name Lily. Yeah.
Lily has a very large family of both human and Andorian family members.
And yeah, and then Talia, who's a Vulcan, very repeatedly states they are definitely a Vulcan.
They are definitely a Vulcan. Stick a pin in that because we'll probably end up covering it like when we get to volume 4 of this comic.
Oh wow. Yeah. Yeah, they are very suspiciously a Vulcan of Starfleet, cough. And they've got a fun back and forth dynamic anyway. And Talia actually had some fun interactions with Jake. One of the two issues where there's Jake action going on is, yeah, like Jake makes some gumbo and chats with Talia about how he's kind of cheating slightly and doing some bits that his dad wouldn't approve of with it. And then they get into a fun, like, side-scrolling sequence of panels running through some of Q's tests, which it's a fun interaction between them. Like, Jake is good when he's allowed to be good.
Yeah.
And yeah, I quite like Talia's interactions, both with Jake and with Sato as well.
I'm glad that they try and give Jake some. Jake has data pages that both open and end the volume. That's a good way of kind of just setting up kind of where we are in the timelines. I think this takes place before Nemesis.
Yes, yeah, it's only a couple years after DS9 ends, so
yeah.
I guess shortly after Voyager ends.
Yeah,
as well. Actually, think about it.
So it's in that nebulous spot where between I don't know what the year gap is between the end of the year between end of DS9 and the end of and the time frame of Nemesis.
Yeah, no idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, we even get some old friends for crystalline entities. They're in the building. Hey! I love that Data is like, yes, I'm freaking out about this. I'm going to shut the emotions down. It's like, he's got previous with crystalline entities. They're not great. And yeah, but they're the first gods that we see killed. Ominously by a thing where it's like, oh, we obscure it a bit, which feels... I don't know, it felt a bit odd that it was kind of like, okay, something mysterious that we were here for happened and we didn't see why or anything, but sure. And yeah, like, it's nice seeing those gods because we get some that I think are made up just for this, with the Shapers of Sarkadesh.
Yeah, I think the Shapers of Sarkadesh are new to the comic, and again, I think like they're these godlike engineers who live on this planet, and basically the Klingons are like, you start nothing, we don't do nothing.
Yeah, which seems fine. The Federation's got some of those. I'm sure everyone's got some.
Yeah.
Like, just here be dragons.
Pretty much.
And and we get Worf, who I love that it's the promise of an interstellar incident but gets him on board because the Klingon Empire sounds like a mess. You've got a clone of Carlos in charge. You've got some fundamentalist types going, oh, let's bring back the old ways. All of that. It's like, oh no. Oh, this all looks bad. And Worf is stuck doing paperwork for it, which, don't get me wrong, is a TNG main character. He loves paperwork, but this all feels a bit rubbish, ultimately.
And so he promptly joins the crew.
Yeah, why not?
Why not?
Yeah.
Another bit I did like in issue 2 when a bunch of the party beamed down, including Data. At this point, like, Sisko has no patience with Data.
No.
And so the gods are just about to kill everyone on the planet. And Data's like, hey, guys, I get it. They're humans. They're small and squishy, but they built me, and I'm awesome. So don't you think they're worth keeping around because they could build someone as awesome as Data?
Well, I loved that. It was that kind of, you guys make stuff, they make stuff. Look, see, behold, me. So yeah, good work, Data. Data had some fun moments.
Yeah.
In this, and I like that the interaction with Sisko and Data does have a little tension early on, because Sisko, not only is he discombobulated, but he's feeling this lot out, and while he trusts someone like Crusher, he's not sure where he stands with Data, because they've not worked together, and Data, being an android, like, is he going to be too by the books with it? Like, is he going to trust Sisko's attitude, which, it's up there with Janeway as far as the kind of will put something over the rule book and pretend it's not there kind of thing, which actually we do get a little bit of in this as well. So yeah, and issue 3 we get an old friend, Godwise. We get the scamp of space himself. We get Q.
Who promptly gets punched in the face again.
Yeah, and deservingly so.
Yeah.
Oh, and we get a Sex Ghost reference.
Yup.
Yeah. Also, the way that Crusher sells it, because I remember chatting with my partner about the Sex Ghost episode, and she was like, did Beverly really, like, was Beverly on board with all of this? And Crusher going, she was in love with a space ghost. So, well, kind of, I guess. Like, sure, the ghost maybe should have admitted more that he was a weird energy being. But yeah. And yeah, this is where we get the gumbo.
She also admits that she's kind of here to try and to see if she can find Wesley. Since Sisko has also technically ascended to godlike being for a couple of years.
Yeah, there's definitely a son's thing going on here. Because, Wesley's, like, it's a good point of comparison that Sisko's going, oh yeah, I'm dealing with all this, like, weird god stuff. And Crusher's like, yeah, my son did that once. Don't hear from him at the moment, but yeah, be good to figure that out. And yeah, Q's mostly being Q. Sorry, being Q, not being Q. Yeah, and that's where we get our fun Jake Talir side-scrolling scene, which even includes the Renfair Castle with the Organians and the whole kind of, the peace talks, which feels apt given all the Klingon stuff that's going on here.
I will also say stick a pin in that. For later on down the line.
Okay,
and then
good.
Also a part where Jake and Talir have to tango their way out of something, and then outrun a fuck ton of tribbles.
Yes, yeah, that was all good fun. So yeah, and with all of the nonsense, Worf does give the line that I had to write down. It only took me 1 week on this vessel to end up in a stupid hat. So yes, Worf. And yeah, what?
Why not?
Yeah, of course that was going to happen. Like, Yeah, he shouldn't expect otherwise at this point. Maybe come in a stupid hat preemptively, and then no one can stupid hat you.
Worf should just be at all times wearing a fez.
Just to prevent other hats from being there. Good.
No other hat will attack. It's a fez. We're like, oh my shit, this guy's wearing a fez. He clearly doesn't care what other people think of him.
Exactly, yeah. I don't know. Maybe they'd end up giving him really silly shoes or something.
He has like Sideshow Bob clown shoes.
Exactly. Yeah. God, I was hearing someone at work talking about seeing someone with like an odd pair of Crocs. Now, don't get me wrong, I tend to wear odd socks. That's it. It started off as an accidental thing, and then an intentional thing, and then realizing most of my family seem to do it, so it's just a thing now. But odd shoes feels like a weird choice.
Yeah.
And odd Crocs. Anyway, yeah, they get sent over to they get directed to the God City of Takon, which I love as a phrase. I love that phrase, which they even have to do some proper Star Trekking to find it by just bouncing off some things. And it's a bit of a talking head scene, which luckily, whichever artist it is that's on issue 4 does pretty well with, of going, yeah, like Sato and Talir and Scotty go like, well, everything has particles, right? And all particles have some kind of mass. So even weird gods have some particles. So Scotty goes, yeah, just check in subspace. Why not? Nice, easy thing. And yeah, that's where they find the God City of Takon. Yes, which love it. It's this big ruined looking city that is a living being. It's dormant, but it's giant.
Okay, for a moment, did you think it was one of the Farscape aliens? Well, not Farscape, Farside aliens from way back in Next Gen Episode 1?
Oh God, the Farpoint ones.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
Hadn't even clicked. God, yeah, there's definitely something there with that jellyfish kind of look. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing, because it looks like some sort of weird space station thing. But yeah, it's got bones in it. And yeah, and that's kind of cool. And then you get the Klingons arrive with their God Killer. And that feels like something I would have run in an RPG. Like, my group have dealt with weird, like, weaponized deities set to explode in a fantasy game. So, yeah, the idea of a space fight in a god city, it's like, yes. But yeah, and it's actually Emperor Carlos, Clone Carlos, because the Klingons, they've made it known already, they killed their own gods. And as some kind of anti-theist thing, they now want to kill all other gods, which is quite a flex. Don't get me wrong, respect them punching up, not down. But, Jesus, guys, what on earth? Why? Like going, yeah, I'm going to show I'm really strong. Why? I'm going to find these, like, cosmic megafauna and destroy them. God. Like, Book would be very upset in the future if he found that they were doing it to things like this.
Like, I guess Chaos went, James Kirk killed the god of a rock. I can top that.
Yeah, apparently so. I will genocide every crystalline entity. Fuck's sake. Like, space needs to be weird. I love Star Trek space for how weird it is. It feels second only to, like, Space 1999 for, like, turn a corner. It's fucking weird. And with all that, like, the Klingons, how are they killing gods?
Big gun.
Well, big orb.
Big gun powered by a prophet orb.
Yeah, why did they make an orb of destruction?
If you don't, here is the thing: you might need it. It's like, haven't you ever bought a book who's like, I'm going to get round to reading Salman Rushdie's The Satanic Verses. maybe I'll feel in the mood to read Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy.
Yeah, one day I'll get round to Anna Karenina, although, of all things, my love, Gilmore Girls spoilt the ending for me. But
maybe I will actually get around to playing every mainline Super Mario Brothers game.
Now, hang on. And some that are questionably mainline as well. As I had to ask specifically your partner, given that she's commented on most of my posts about completing varied Mario games, going like, is Yoshi's Island canon to the Super Mario series?
I don't know, but it's a lot of fun.
It is.
But Baby Mario gets really annoying when he starts crying.
Yeah, just a bit. And the Yoshis all just look a bit lost. Anyway, yeah, so Orb of Destruction. Yeah, and because the crew get boarded briefly by Klingons, they find out who in this anti-theist fundamentalist sect is also part of Carlos's crew. It's Alexander! Yeah!
And now is when Worf decides to go, maybe I will try and be Father of the Year.
Yes, finally. Wait a second. Maybe neglecting my son for all these years has been bad, actually.
It's like, Sisko gives the orders like fire on the ship before it kills Takon. And Worf's like, I've just decided now I should try and be a good dad. And everyone's like, what, now?
Now, when we could have stopped a god killer. Fine, God. Well, I mean, that's the thing. At first, he's like, no, there's an emperor on board. That's going to be bad. Also, my son is on board as well. Yeah, I maybe should have led with that.
This would be the point where, like, a motion ship Data would just kind of throw his arms up in the air and go, what the fuck, man?
Yeah. God. So, yeah. So they can't just murder them now. Fine. And that's where, yeah,
if Riker were there, he'd be like, wait, okay, so you were okay with maybe risking a war with the Romulans over letting that one Romulan die, but your son's in danger, and you're like, oh shit, am I the Cyclops in this equation?
Afraid so. Oh, dear.
Hang on. Has any of Cyclops' future children ever turned out to be evil, or got hideously radicalized?
Rachel spent a number of years as a brainwashed hound. Cable was generally all right, but his clone, Strife, was a wrong un, but in a very poetic emo way, where he'd never explain his poetic revenge plans, but they would be intricate. And Ruby was generally a good egg.
Okay.
Yeah. It's Cable's son, Tyler. Who was a piece of shit. But, yeah. So, yeah, a varied level of success with them. But yeah, not like this. Not like Alexander, who, yeah, I guess, like, I don't know. Troy has a data page thing talking about Alexander and going, Worf's a really good parent, which, when, Troy?
No, hang on. Wasn't it like Worf's a really good officer and a really good friend? As a parent, he's not. He makes me reconsider my own relationship to my mother. That's what I'm saying.
I mean, that's, yeah. I guess she's got issues as well. What is it? Alexander's sessions have been notable in one overwhelming way. His relationship to his father's a gaping wound. Well, he is failing his son. Never mind, I take that back. Yeah, but Worf's only human upbringing should provide empathy towards his son's situation. It's like, no. Yeah, sorry, I take that back, Troy. You did all right by reporting this. Maybe your ex could have been a bit better. Yeah, unfortunately, no. But fine. Like, Sisko's going to have to figure out another way.
And Worf bails to go, head up the spin-off titled Defiant.
Yeah, I admit, I was surprised it was this quick that a spin-off happened. I know this was very well received. I don't know if it was already planned that they'd do a second one.
I don't know, because like, I'm not sure how much they had planned in advance.
Mm,
But we get to the big crossover summer event by like issue 12. So maybe it was kind of planned, maybe it was kind of initially planned down the line.
maybe. Yeah. So yeah, the Cisco is needed. It's like, okay, I get now why the prophets were freaked out if the Klingons have one of their orbs, like the worst of their orbs, the, as far as I'm aware, not previously mentioned orb of destruction. That's not very nice and can kill gods. So yeah, and Jake comes along, and this is our second issue where there's actual Jake content. Aside from him being kind of like, "Hey, Dad," and Cisco being like, "I'm busy."
I'm dealing with Godship.
Yeah, yeah. And well, he does deal with the god shit. The problem is they kind of woke up the God City while driving away Carlos and the Klingons. It's like they're gone. Now we've got this God City that's like, you've woken me from my nap. I'm gonna eat everything now. Fuck you all. Which I can feel quite angry if I'm woken up unnecessarily, and yeah, like who doesn't feel a bit hungry? Who doesn't want a bit of breakfast? But this is probably bad because God City. And yeah, luckily it is one of those Star Trek times where Cisco admitting he was a lousy dad, take notes, Worf, like all the profit stuff got in the way. He was torn between work, profits, everything, and he's actually going to be there, which I don't know if he is in the remaining volumes, but maybe he will be. The God City sees them hug and goes like, good work, fine, everything's good here. I'm going to chill out some. And then, yeah, Worf fucks off for spin off, and everyone else is like, yeah, this was fun. Let's go hunt Carlos.
Data steps up to the plate.
Mm. Yes. Yeah, Data. I love the moment where like he helps out Scotty with some fun with the engines and going into proto warp. And there's just a moment of Data going, I'm experiencing pride. So, oh,
Oh,
far too often when he references what he's experiencing with emotion chips, it's something rubbish. It's like, oh, I'm experiencing fear now. It's like, no, he's actually happy with what he's done. So yeah, it's that thing of you get a nice little bit of an end montage kind of thing with them all, and yeah, it even closes out back at DS9. So yeah, I'm curious to see where it goes. This does feel like the kind of thing where if it didn't go, see Star Trek Defiant issue 1 on sale now, you'd go like, okay, the way it's all been written out, maybe if it didn't carry on, it would be all right. You
yeah.
know, there wouldn't be any problem with it. So yeah, it was a nice read. I found the switching of artists a little odd, but what's quite nice is they didn't try too hard at photorealism or anything.
Yeah, and that's definitely one of my issues with the Doctor Who Star Trek comic. That
Mm.
sometimes the attempt to be photorealistic gets in the way of actually being good.
Yeah, of being some nice
And
art.
and and as
Y-
someone who has read Star Trek comics on and off through the years, definitely the art areas where Star Trek has always kind of fallen down in comparison to, say, Star Wars comics, because Star Wars generally has like a lot more visual action, because you can have like some Jedi shit, you can have some space fights, you can have laser swords. Where generally action in Star Trek tends to be, we're going to have a couple of punch ups and we're going to shoot some lasers, and sometimes that is difficult. And also, it is a show where 90% of the problems are usually solved by talking.
yeah, a lot of meeting rooms.
Yes.
Yeah, so the big licensed comic that I used to read a lot was the Dark Horse Buffy comic.
Okay. Yeah.
And that again had some issues art wise. Like there were some alright bits, but generally the art style was a bit too much trying to be Buffy, to the point where you could see what press photos or like for photos of DVD covers or anything were evidently used for some angles, similar to Salvador LaRocca in the Star Wars comics, who gets work on time, and that's the best thing with him. But when Luke Skywalker looks like a press photo of him, this angle is fine. This side, uncanny valley.
Thankfully, for the most part, there's been a lot of Doctor Who comics, and sometimes and some were drawn by Dave Gibbons, who generally is able to do a good representation of a Tom Baker or Peter Davidson, and still not have it look like it's clearly drawn from a reference photograph. And then you have some writers, some artists who you can tell what publicity still of William Hartnell they're using this from. There at one point it's even actually in one there is one Doctor Who comic where they comment on the use of stock photos for, like, say, Patrick Troughton, where Patrick Troughton is clearly is looking at a machine, which is clearly one of the production photos they use to promote on the Radio Times. You have another incarnation of Doctor saying, "Stop doing that generic stock photo pose."
Oh God! I mean, that's where it feels like you're someone that's read a lot more kind of licensed comic things of late than myself. So I even stopped with the Boom Buffy series, but in the last few years, it's definitely felt more like being like the artist. Let the artist be the artist. The Boom Buffy series was very good at going, these characters are drawn characters. They have the features of these actors, but them being drawn like the comic versions takes precedent.
Yeah. I mean, admittedly, like the big tie-in comics I've been reading recently that haven't been Star Trek have been the Image Energon universe of the Transformers, of the G.I. Joe, and the one created just for the Energon universe, which they used to launch. And I can go on about the comic Void Rivals, because it's a fun space opera comic, but it feels like they use the fact that it's in the universe with the Transformers to boost sales, then rather have it be just like an entertaining SF space opera comic. Because you kind of have an enemy mine situation in the first issue, and then at the end of the first issue, Jetfire, an Autobot, arrives, mentions Cybertron, and promptly buggers off.
Great.
Other Transformers characters have been appearing throughout the series. Springer, Hot Rod, aliens like the Quintessons, and there is some connection with the Quintessons, but it always feels to me, it always feels just like very cynical, a way of just easy advertising and an easy audience by getting the Transformers fans in.
Yeah, I remember the day Void Rivals 1 came out, it was already everywhere that it was, hey, look, it's Robert Kirkman starting a Transformers universe, and you have to get Void Rivals 1 for it. And, well, no, I don't, but,
I mean,
yeah.
You ask someone who is reading the Energon books, like, it's like they try and make connections, but like Void Rivals is the most distantly tangential, and like all of the books, like the Transformers and the G.I. Joe ones, are all very much their own separate kind of wheelhouse, but with some interconnectivity.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, they've been fun, but with Void Rivals, it did feel like a cynical branding move.
Definitely. And this, I know, looking at the trade descriptions, it looks like Kelly and Lanzig have done Star Trek writing previously, but this is obviously people that know about it, enjoy it, and are capable of writing it for people that don't know a massive amount. Like,
Yeah.
we've seen 16% of, I think about 15% of all of Star Trek for Casual Trek.
Oh dear God.
And yeah, and I've probably seen under 50% in total. So the fact that there were some references that I got where it's like, ooh, I know this. And somewhere I was looking up on Memory Alpha, like, are these real? Are these real? Are these things that are known?
Yeah.
With, like, Takon, apparently a thing. And yeah.
And frankly, for the most part, it doesn't ever feel...
It doesn't feel like mandatory reading to understand the
again,
story.
that is something which an issue I had with one of the IDW Doctor Who comics, where an important plot point was whether or not the fifth Doctor companion Turlo had a journal.
Oh,
and it's fan wank on top of fan wank, and like, as someone who has read incredibly fan wanky Doctor Who comics, and even as a Doctor Who fan who gets it, has been pushed out of the story, the fact that, like, you know, you can read this and have like a basic understand, like, I would say, like, the most knowledge you would need is to know that Benjamin Sisko ascended to gods to be with the prophets.
Yeah. And despite not having seen the finale of DS9, I managed to catch that just in general, kind of through osmosis.
Osmosis.
Yeah.
Like, Data has a cat. Picard was assimilated, and that, and even then, that's not like a big, like, canon thing to know. It just, like, it's referred to.
Yeah.
Like, it's able to bring in enough to seed things that are going to happen later on in the comic that it never feels incomprehensible.
Yeah, it's like, I've read Star Trek comics on and off, to the point where when I was logging my comic collection on the CLZ app, which I love mucking around with, I know I have bits of the Marvel run, mainly Starfleet Academy, and bits of the Wildstorm stuff. Like, I think almost no complete miniseries. My attention was so fickle, and my budget was so random. But yeah, this has been the most enjoyable that I've found a Star Trek comic, which has been good.
I think one which would be fun to track down and read is the which I had as a trade when I was a young'un, was the Star Trek the Next Generation Star Trek Deep Space Nine crossover comic, because at the time Star Trek Next Generation and Star Trek was licensed to DC, but Malibu, remember Malibu Comics, kids, snapped up the license for DS9, and then so we were able to do their own Deep Space Nine comics, and then they did a crossover where, okay, the one thing I can remember is that Odo is like really friendly to Troy because he's friends with her mum.
Of course. Wow. Huh. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that with Odo, but yeah, that could be a fun one to check out at some point.
And like, Sisko and Picard are civil. They have a kind of like, whatever you can do, I can do better kind of. It's never too like testosterone. Like, you know, Kirk and Sisko would hate each other.
Oh god, definitely. At least one punch would be thrown.
Yeah, but this is Sisko before he grows the goatee and shaves his head. So
wow.
It's like season 1. I think it's like season 1 era.
Okay, so it's still being mostly polite.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, personally, I've enjoyed this. I'm definitely getting volume 2 at some point. I've hit a point with some graphic novels that I have where I have them on a stack. I want to buy more things, but also should not until I have read what is outstanding.
Yeah.
I've finally got Far Sector in the
Oh,
cute little digest
Far Sector
looking thing.
Far Sector is amazing.
Mm. And there's, I think it's some Andy Watson comic as well. Is it Sunburn? Which looked like it appealed to the kind of teen drama, the kind of part of me that's still trying to write the current draft of Lightning. So yeah, so once I'm done with some of them, I will probably be getting volume 2 or looking online like, do I go Defiant first and then volume 2, or volume 2 and then Defiant, or does it not matter?
It doesn't matter because they're both leading to the Day of Blood crossover. So
Right.
they're both concurrent, they don't intersect at all.
Cool. Yeah, and I guess I've not really heard how the Klingon Empire was doing after DS9, so it's interesting seeing them making some moves and going, well, you know, this is where they're at.
Like
it's not good.
Let's be honest. It's make Konos great again.
Yeah, kind of horrifically. Yeah. With radicalizing the impressionable youth.
Yep, and they're the Red Path.
Oh God. Oh no. So I've got that to look forward to reading, and hopefully not looking up at the world and despairing.
Yep.
At it all. So yeah, what fun. Well, with all that said, I think that's it for us for this episode. Next time we'll be getting up to some Star Trek shenanigans, because this is a bonus episode, so I'm not entirely sure what comes after this. So, with that in mind, you can always find us on ko-fi.com/casualtrek. You can find us on Blue Sky at casualtrek.bsky.social. Miles, where can folks find you?
You can find me on Blue Sky at milesreedlobato.bsky.social and on my blog, which eventually will get updated, at mareedlobato.wordpress.com.
Okay, cool. And yeah, you can find me on skyshark.bsky.social, fakedtales.com, where I'm currently talking about 2000 AD, and
Maximum thrill power unlocked.
Oh yeah. And skyshark.itch.io for RPG and comic content from myself. Although there may be news about that soon, depending on when this comes out.
And as always, go to a Starfleet and have some gumbo. I've always wanted to have gumbo.
I've no idea with gumbo. I assume there's vegetarian gumbo out there.
I'm sure there's vegetarian. If you can get vegetarian sausages, then you can get vegetarian gumbo.
This is true. Have some gumbo of the veggie or non-veggie variety, depending on your tastes. You have been listening to Casual Trek, a Nerd and High podcast, presented by Charlie Etheridge Nunn and Miles Reed Lobato. Music by Alfred Etheridge Nunn. Star Trek by Paramount. Not us. Not yet.